there. I've got a story for you today from John chapter 9, and it's kind of exciting. In fact, I want to get it just right. So you may see me looking over to my Bible or my notes from time to time. This is one that I heard about when I was growing up, and it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. But the more I've learned about it over the years, the more exciting it is to hear it told and to study it as well. So, what we have in this case is that Jesus is with his disciples. They're in Jerusalem, and we're not sure exactly where in Jerusalem they are, although it was kind of common for people in general, and Jesus in particular, to be somewhere between the Mount of Olives, which is outside Jerusalem, and near the temple inside Jerusalem. And they see a blind man who was a beggar. Now, that's generally what job a beggar would have because they couldn't do a lot of anything else that needed to be done. And in this case, the man had been born blind. So he had always been blind. And um, that gave rise to a question from the disciples. And they were asking Jesus, and they said, okay, now this man is blind, so is it because his parents sinned, or did he sin? And Jesus says, no, that's not it. Now you think, wait a second, okay, in those days, and even some people now think that bad things that happen to you are a direct result of something bad that you did or something bad somebody else did, and it's a punishment from God. Now, there is a little bit of truth to some of that. So if somebody's driving too fast and carelessly may cause an accident that hurts people who are innocent, and that's a consequence of someone not following the traffic laws or not trying to be safe. Now, what they're talking about is something where God is directly punishing someone. And so you say, okay, that's kind of a question that we really should not ask because that's not the right way to look at God as being just waiting to punish someone for what they do. He wants people to turn back to Him. But the other thing that they bring up as a possibility is that this man is blind for his own sin. And you go, wait, he was born blind, so when would he have done this sin? And people in those days thought it possible that you could sin before you were born, and don't really know how or what reasoning they use for that. But the good part is people pretty much don't think that anymore. And Jesus backs that up, and he's going, nah, this is so that a great thing from God can be done. Now, we don't know if the man was blind for this reason or if it just so happened that Jesus is there and he's going to use this as an opportunity. But in any event, what he does is spits on the ground, then takes the mud from that and wipes it on the blind man's eyes. And he tells him, go and wash in the pool of Siloam. Well, that seems a little bit odd, but people did think of spit as being something that had healing factors, and it turns out they are not too far off the mark because you find that the saliva your mouth generates does have good properties to it. Now, as far as healing eye problems, it's not really known for that. But the man goes to the pool. He probably has to be wondering what's going on, but he could not have missed the conversation that was going on because he knows the name of the man who did this. It's Jesus. We find out this a little bit later. He goes to the pool of Siloam, washes his eyes, and now he can see. So he heads home, and you go, wait a second, he's a blind man. How does he know how to get home? Uh, Good question, but it reminds me of a time when I was in college, and there was a man who was blind, and he lived in an apartment that was on the campus, but not right there where the other buildings were. And he had a cane and he knew his way around the school. He could find where he had to go. And I'm guessing someone showed him, but then he learned it and he knew, and he would walk fast with it, faster than most people would going down the sidewalk. And he would get to where he needed to go. Well, this man uh, must have known how to get to places without being able to see. So now that he can see, it's just that much easier. He gets back to his house, and we find he's living with his parents. They're still alive, but they don't show up just yet. And the neighbors see him, and people who knew him from being a beggar um, saw him, and some were going, "Wait, this is the guy who's been blind. How's it he can see?" And others are going, "No, no, it's not the same guy. It's just somebody who looks like him." And that second group, you can kind of see what they're thinking because they go, "This is it, unusual," and he would kind of look different because now he's looking around, whereas before he wouldn't have been. There'd have been no reason to. Well, they ask him about it, and he says, "Oh, Jesus did this. There's a man called Jesus, and he cured my blindness." Well, word gets back to the Pharisees, and they call him in. He goes there, and the Pharisees want to get to the bottom of this because a miracle has apparently been done, and they want to find out what's going on. And they bring him in, and what we find out in this, they ask him the what happened. He tells them, and they're going, "Oh, well, this Jesus guy, he's a sinner. How could he do this? He did this on the Sabbath." And um, the man goes, "He's a prophet." Well, now we think about, oh, this man's had a chance to think about this. He's going from he was a man named Jesus. Now he's realizing this is a miracle, and you just don't get a miracle, especially on the Sabbath, unless it's from somebody who's even bigger than that. And there is history of prophets being able to do miracles on the Sabbath, and so that must be what this is. And he goes, he's a prophet, so he's now elevated Jesus a little bit. And these guys are not believing them, and they call in his parents and they say, "Hey, what can you tell us about this?" And the parents are scared because they know these guys don't like Jesus. The Pharisees don't. And they're kind of afraid of what might be done to them. Now, they're older people, and they could lose real big if the Pharisees go against them. And they may not have a means to support themselves or not very well. And they go, "Well, all we can tell you is that he was born blind, but he is of age, so anything else you need to ask him." Well, what being of age means is that the man who had been born blind was at least 30 years old. He was considered full grown and capable of speaking for himself. It wasn't like he was a child or anything. And so they come back and ask him again. And they say, "Now give glory to God." Say, "We know this man is a sinner." Okay. And he goes, "Look, whether he's a sinner or not, I can't say. All I know is that I was born blind and now I can see." And said, "Oh, would you like to become his disciples too?" Now, that makes him angry, and I think this was intentional. He's been telling them this over and over, and he tells them to their faces because, "Now, I've already told you this once. Why weren't you listening?" Well, they don't like that, and they insult him and call him all kinds of names. He goes, Now, and let's be sure I've got this right." He goes, "Okay, this is remarkable. Never in history has someone been cured of blindness who was born blind, but this has happened." He said, "This man could have done nothing if he were not from God." Well, that's the thing they really did not want to hear, and they threw him out. And they called him all kinds of other names too. All right, so this man is now, he's shaken up. by this. He's been thrown out by the religious leaders, and Jesus shows up. Now, he doesn't know it's Jesus, of course, because he's never actually seen Jesus. And Jesus uh, is saying, do you believe in the Son of Man? Kind of a way of saying, do you believe in the Messiah? Do you believe in the one God was sending? And and the man get his words just right. And he says, who is he? And Jesus says, that's me. And the man looks at him and calls him Lord. And he bows down to Jesus. And so what we see is the man who had been blind at the beginning of the day. He just meets this guy named Jesus. Next, he's a prophet. Next, he's from God. Next, he is the Messiah, the one from God. This man has gone from the lowest he could be to the ultimate knowledge. And most people are not going to know that around him, but it's been demonstrated in his life. And he is a follower. And Jesus is saying to the man, in front of some Pharisees who are standing there, and tell him how he's forgiven and all, and he talks about the spiritual blindness of the people who thought they knew God, but they don't know God. And some of the Pharisees get offended by that. And Jesus says, if they didn't claim to know and think they already knew God, then that sin would be held against them, but now it will be. But let's focus more on this man. He has made a full journey in less than a day. And I see it as his being perhaps the strongest disciple Jesus makes as a result of what he has been through. His life has been hard, and it's going to continue to be hard in a different way, but he has found Jesus. And that's the thing that we can hope for everyone, is that they can find Jesus in such a convincing manner as this man did. Okay, with that, I will stop for today. As you may have noticed, I wore the tie with the eyes on it. And what better tie to represent someone who had his eyes opened? I hope to see you next time, and you have a good day. Bye.